Maybe.
A.
Okay. That's better.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Woo.
I knew
Hello.
there was going to be something.
Yeah, of course. There's been something all the time. That's what I'm telling you. We are perfecting something.
Yeah. No, this is the first grunge album.
Yes. And if you weren't there, then don't even talk about it because
Right.
you know, just it's pointless. Just move on. Get your own hobby.
Are you holding up?
I'm babbling, but I only have an hour and a half left. I think it'll be okay.
Nice.
The people listening, watching, say yes. This setup is much better.
Yeah.
So everybody's happy. How are you doing, Josh?
You know, I mean, given the general situation, it's kind of a weird in between because on one hand, 90% of my life is still pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of time spent in here by myself.
Yeah.
And I can still go in the ocean, so that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
And then there's the part where you're sitting around waiting to see what the hell's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, that's nice. You can go into the ocean. There was Carrie was on earlier in Las Palmas in Canary Islands, and they can't go into the ocean.
Yeah, there was a whole thing on Surfline, interviews with different surfers in Europe saying they can't go to the beach, they get fines, and there's people out. So I'm hoping that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if there's one activity that kind of mandates that you stay far away from other people, that's it.
Going to the beach?
Yeah, being in the water.
It's lame. Why can't they just put little ropes? You know, everybody can have their own little swim lane.
I mean, on a surfboard, you kind of have a built-in rope. You got to stay 15 feet apart.
This is the second riding the wave surf. I guess it's not so. Is that it's the second reference with the bug and surfing, but it makes sense. Humans are kind of limited when it comes to, you know, visual metaphor usage. We tend to beat the same bushes, I guess. See, I can't see.
Well, you've been going for quite a while.
I mean, that's true. That's true. Wah, 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 wah. Anyway, what have you been up to? What are you going to show us? Show us your... Yeah, what are you going to show us?
Well, let's take a look at what's currently being made over here. This is the part that makes it a little harder.
Yeah. Ooh.
So I'm kind of getting full.
Yeah.
Tell you the truth. And I've really had to start going up.
You storing them up? Oh, yeah. See.
Yeah.
Them up. Yeah.
They just get higher and higher because, you know, the space is sort of filling up.
Yeah. What do you call them?
I've been calling them mandalas.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely a part of them that's like maybe contemplative, sort of draws you in. I don't know, sounds weird to talk about it a little bit, but they each one, I mean, it really starts for me with the materials. Most of these are a flexible slip, which is a mixture of liquid latex and ceramic slip with various shellacs and pigments and stuff dripped into them. And I make all the little boxes. Let's see if we can get up close on some of these. Let's see. How about that one?
The beige one, the cream one, or whatever. Yeah.
And that's sort of an earlier one before I started coloring. So each one of those little boxes is I make the little box and then pour a liquid ground into it, and then drip the pigments and such in there. Wonder how close we can get.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
And then once they're done, kind of shape them into some kind of semblance of order. So I've been working with this particular set of materials for off and on for quite some time. And let's see. So this one over here, over in the corner. Sorry, I know this is very professional, but like you said.
That's right.
Yeah. So this was a bunch of basically R&D little boxes. I was trying to figure out how to make this shellac do its little chemical reaction thing.
Okay, let's see. Those aren't shiny.
No, this one's actually has a matte finish on it, which does take away a little bit of the detail. But this was the first one where I took all my R&D and kind of put it into one conglomeration. And
the beige one was the one you showed us over there. This beige one was the first one where you got the.
It was the first one that I kind of made like a collage out of all the little individual experiments.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, that's cool. Maybe I should move on to one that's maybe I should pay a little more attention to the wood. And then that's when that one happened. And yeah, then just kept making more and more and more. It's been a fairly productive couple of years.
Yeah.
And then some of these ones that have the more sort of succulent thing going on. And let's see if we can get a good side shot of that. So that each layer gets higher and higher up, like a flower or succulent.
Yeah.
And my next door neighbor, who's kind of awesome, wrote me a little program because the angles of that change every time you increase the degrees of how much it's tilted, all the other angles change. So he wrote me out a little spreadsheet so I can just plug in, there's 9 around the edge and I want it up 7 degrees and it tells me all the cuts to make, which is pretty awesome.
But you mean every time you make a new one, it's not like you're restructuring that one that's already made. I mean, you can make it a new. Okay. I thought you meant like you wanted to be a sundial or something, and you're doing that every day, changing the positions.
No, although I have thought of it, I haven't figured out how to make a variable structure where I can change the tilt, which would be pretty cool.
What about with just the tilt? What about the shape? I mean, if you could make it this thing behind you, for instance, a square. Would that be? Yeah,
I could. I mean, I actually just made a piece for him that was little tiny squares on a metal background with magnets. And his kid is having a good time rearranging those for herself.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. So mandala. And how do you hang them? That's what I was asking. First, how heavy are they? And then do you have them on little thin cables, little wires?
Yeah, I have them mostly on wires. Some of the early ones I had on cleats, but the wires make it easier to hang and easier to move around. They're about, I don't know, maybe 30 pounds, depending on how big they are.
Okay.
That that one there, that blue one at the top, that's probably the biggest one. That's probably 40 pounds, maybe more. I don't know. I haven't weighed them.
Well, what about the little one there? I would think that's not the one in, the circle right here. How much is that? How much does it weigh? Oh,
6-7 pounds, maybe.
it looks so heavy. I mean, I guess because they look ornate. So
Yeah, well, this one and that red one were all made on, or the boxes were all cut on my neighbor's laser cutter. So that was kind of my foray into doing a little more tech-based thing. On one hand, it makes the squares very square, which is nice. On the other hand, it only cuts through 1/8 inch wood. So the part of me that knows how to work with wood, like put screws in things and glue things, there's not a lot of material to work with. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. And actually, like most things computer-based, it doesn't really save you any time. It just makes things really precise. Like you have to program it all out and you have to cut it. And then because each of the little squares is one back and then 2 little frames, all, I don't know if you can see, like each one of those little things is actually 3 pieces, each one of those squares. So you have to glue those together. So you're not actually saving much time, if any.
And when did you start doing this?
The circles. I mean, I think that first collage was about 2.5, 3 years ago.
That's funny. I had the impression it was much longer. I felt like I'd seen them around longer.
Well, I mean, the drips in, of the shellac into the flexible slip, something I've been doing for quite a while, but I don't know, it feels like I needed to, fail at that for 10 years before I could figure out a thing that I liked with it.
Well, that's an impressive amount of work for 2-3 years.
Yeah, this is about half of them too. There's been a bunch of them that have either made their way to other people's houses or to mine.
And how long have you been in your studio?
I've been in this studio for maybe 8 or 9 years. It's pretty great.
So, by the way, for people listening, didn't get that perhaps. 8 or 9 years?
Yeah, 8 or 9 years. Yeah. Did I cut out? Did I cut out?
No. I went to look at the comment, so it automatically does something funny. But you're fine. It's not.
All right. Yeah, it's nice. We have a nice big shop over here.
Ooh. What is that? What is that R2D2 looking thing?
The what?
That robot that has arms behind you. What's that thing? That robot. It looks like a robot.
Oh. That?
Yeah.
That's my Festool rig. It's a German set of tools that claims 95% dust collection. It's pretty awesome. Actually, yeah, it has its own built-in vacuum cleaner, and it's kind of the best thing. I actually had to get this saw for it when I started making these with more precise cuts, because it's German and Germans do things precise.
But does it move? Can you wheel that thing around?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's and all the tools are modular, and the whole thing just comes with a hose. So you just plug it in, and when you turn the tool on, the vacuum comes on. It's pretty great.
What's it called? A what?
Festool.
Festool?
Festool. I think it means fast tool in German,
No.
and I think it's because it makes cleanup faster because it's so good at getting rid of the dust.
Festool. All right, that makes sense. I thought you were saying festool, which is something else entirely.
I don't know what that is.
I can't repeat it here anyway.
Yeah, no, you'd get shut down.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think about that.
And here's a piece that I just finished for some people that I know.
Yeah. But they're all different colors.
Yeah.
Beautiful. How many I'm gonna call them tiles or squares are there? Total.
I don't know. One problem with having the kind of the basis for making these is the stuff that got left over from something else and that I made into something. So that means that every time I make a bunch of things, I have to save all of them because they might turn into another piece. So I have, it's just like boxes and boxes and boxes of like little this and that, little, all the testers. I mean, that's what this piece was.
Ooh. But that's just the fabric? What is that?
No, so whereas earlier on, I used to have to make these little wooden boxes to do all my R&D. And then there used to be a guy who had a studio upstairs here. And I went up there and he was doing a similar kind of thing, but he was using all Petri dishes. And I was like, oh, wow, I don't have to make a little box for each time I try something. And so I ordered a bunch of Petri dishes. And each one of these is like a little experiment. There's
down there. It looks like an eyeball. The far left red one underneath the soul black one.
That one?
Down. No, down.
That one.
Left.
Left with this?
Yeah, that.
Yeah, and that's a multiple stage one where I poured epoxy over one that was kind of like this and then dumped a bunch of powdered copper in there. So a lot of these have powdered copper or powdered steel, various inks. The black ones are clear epoxy with charcoal dust or graphite. These ones here are ferric fluid, which is like that fluid that magnets can pull around.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, these were all like the ones sitting in boxes, except at some point I sort of put them all out on a thing and was like, oh, those look cool. But it does mean that I can't throw anything away, which is really not a great thing for me.
Well, yeah. Why don't you just change your mind about your philosophy? And how,
Yeah, it's okay. That's kind of false modesty. I don't care. It's mostly that it just ends up, taking over every available space.
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
that's the thing.
And there's a few others that are sort of recent. These ones.
Ooh. Yeah.
Those are when I make the little wooden boxes, I use tape to, when I glue them together, like because I'm making, 70 of them and I don't have 70 little square clamps.
Yeah.
And so when I'm done, I have all this tape that I pull off. So that's what these are all made with the excess tape from the last piece, that blue one around the corner that I showed you.
Oh, I didn't know that they were taped. I thought it was like a model of how to stack the plates, the squares.
Yeah, no, it's
Wow, you really aren't leaving anything to Scrapville.
not, I mean, like I like things to have a little bit of their own properties.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that it's more like a conversation that I have with the materials. Yeah. And that, you know, I mean, each individual little square is something that I kind of let the materials interact and, you know, make their own, you know, each one of those things. When I do it, I can't see how it's going to turn out until the next day when I come back. And
yeah, that's nice. And what is, those are just.
So these ones are all, the background is clear epoxy with, like I said, charcoal dust or graphite. And that gives the black a really, like a nice depth to it, because the light that bounces back out is actually bouncing out of, I don't know, 1/4 inch or so of clear material with powder suspended in it. And then the color is Copic inks, which are alcohol based, dripped into those.
But how do you? Do you know when you? I'm looking at the patterns, and that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Right. So I mix up a bunch of epoxy, and then like epoxy resin, which is what most of these are coated with, because part of the ground is liquid latex, which will age with UV light and the ozone in the atmosphere. So I started coating them in epoxy so they don't yellow. And this is just straight epoxy. And then I have these inks. Here, I'll show you my ink junkie table. You'll see why I call it that.
Oh, yeah. Whoa. And you put that in the epoxy? No, that's what you put in.
Yeah, once the epoxy is poured into the boxes, then I drip the ink on top, and it sort of sits on top and does a little weird chemical dance. And you can put big drips in with the tubes, and then you use the hypodermic needles for the little tiny ones.
I see. And are these, no, they're not all the same. They're not color coded like that.
Well, you know, sort of. I got my grays and my greens, yellows, oranges.
I meant the syringes.
Oh yeah, no. Each one of those matches each one of these, and I write the number on the end, so I know which one they are.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Which is pretty crazy. And I've been making drawings. That's actually, I have like I've been making these drawings on Yupo paper, which is a little bit plasticky. So the ink doesn't seep into the paper. It kind of sits, and they're alcohol based. They dry really quickly, but
those are beautiful. But does it give it the oh yeah, look at that. You can see it shining. That's just the paper that makes it shiny, or did you put something on it?
The ink when it dries also makes it kind of shiny. But yeah, this is just sort of the current crop of those.
Wow, they look like they're coming out the page, like the 3D.
Yeah, that ink is so brilliant. And I mean, the colors are just like, it's super fun. It's super fun to just make them and drip them in together and let them push each other around.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So that's the thing. And then the most recent.
Wow, when you're pulling away, I can see that. It's so 3D. These two splotches, like these explosion things underneath the fruit. Those are really trippy.
Yeah, no, and that's just playing. That's just, it's so much fun to just like let those things do their thing. And I want to show you one more thing too.
Okay.
My partner, Anne, she did a bunch of dyeing. You know, Anne. Mm-hmm. She did a bunch of indigo dyeing, and there was all of these little blocks left over from her tie-dyeing napkins and stuff. So that's the most current piece.
That's cool. Wow.
I know I'm making everybody seasick, but
very slowly. It's okay.
Oop, hold on. Yeah, so I think that's more or less it.
All right. Well, thank you for the virtual tour. I mean, it's really, I'm not going to get over that explosion thing for a while, but it is very fascinating to see how it all, there it is. How it all, it's just standing up. It's really amazing. Yeah, thanks for taking us into your studio and we get to see how stuff works. And this is Josh Warren. You can follow him on Instagram at Anthroposcenery. He's linked on the Quarantuned.com site. Thank you so much for coming to hang
Thanks,
with
Amelia.
us.
You're awesome. Everybody stay safe. Be hygienic.
This is CNN.
Yeah. All right.
Bye.
Sweet. Bye.